Everyone has nightmares. But for actors, they can take a very different form because their worst nightmares happen when they are wide awake. Hi, I'm Luann Moldovan, and welcome to The Actor's Nightmare. We have a great story today, but before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsors who have been so supportive of the show. First, a big shout out to Artists Repertory Theater, Portland's premier regional theater company, producing intimate, provocative shows that provide a home for a diverse community of artists where they can thrive and take risks. Check out their 2019-2020 season at www.artistrep.org. Also, thanks so much to our patrons, Bob Conklin, and to Len and Susan Magazine and their company Realestats, providing statistical overviews for residential real estate in Oregon and Washington. Check them out at www.realestats.net. And of course, we are so grateful for the studio at North Rim, where we record our podcast. If you want to do a show, check them out at studioatnorthrim.com. All right, so today we have in the studio our illustrious producer, Adam Klugman. Hi, Adam.
Hi, I don't know how illustrious I am, but thank you
He's
for the
so
compliment.
modest. He's very modest. Well, I wanted Adam to join me today because this particular story that we heard before we got to meet the actor, he submitted it, and it was so incredibly affecting in a way that we didn't expect.
No, we get stories, and we expect them to be funny or outrageous or a little unbelievable or, anecdotal. So I just expected it to be another story of, funny or outrageous or silly and I keep waiting for it. And I'm like, well, where's the funny? And then as I started to listen, I realized it's a nightmare for sure, but it's not funny. And it's about something that I think doesn't get talked about a lot, which is race in theater, right? The story suddenly became all about that in this very real, very confrontational kind of way. Just thank you for having me on. I just felt like I wanted to be a part of this conversation too, so I was glad when you invited me because it's an important conversation and it's a nightmare for sure. So it qualifies. It's just not, it doesn't fall into what we usually expect, which is what's great about doing the show. You just never know what you're going to get.
And we keep reinventing the rules, Adam and I.
Yeah.
It was great to receive this from you, James Dixon. Welcome to the studio.
Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad you're here.
Me as well. Thanks for having me.
I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say again that if you're out there listening, well, we hope you are, many of you, these stories, and thanks to James, broaden the horizons of what the Actor's Nightmare podcast will include and can integrate. So you will sit yourself down and be ready. This is a very suspenseful and very moving tale.
And difficult at times.
Oh,
painful,
yeah.
painful.
It's a case where the play James was in, the boundaries broke down and real life took over. Before we get into it, though, I do want to say in my welcome to you, James, who I've known and adored, you started acting about 6 years ago.
Yes, I'm technically a fairly green actor, and I built a pretty strong career in a very short amount of time, thankfully, because of the lack of diversity in Portland.
Yes.
There's more opportunities, and so, that's how
and creating them for yourself. I mean, you got into directing as well, but I'm curious, what was that launch pad like for you? You were not acting, and then you were. What prefaced it?
Well, I was working at Portland Center Stage as a concierge to begin with, and I'm like, okay, what's this theater place? And I never experienced PCS. I wasn't watching plays or anything. I was working at PCS,
and I will say, I'll interject to our listeners that James is this beautiful man, and he had this beautiful hair of dreadlocks.
Dreadlocks, yes.
Or head of dreadlocks, yes. Very dramatic.
And I remember watching the Mountaintop, and Rodney Hicks was in that, and I saw Rodney Hicks deliver this huge monologue, and I was like, I want to do this. I should be doing this, And when you think about the full circle of passing on art, being a black actor, I'm like, there's a black man who's older than me doing this, telling this big, beautiful story, and it inspired me to want to be a part of theater. So I took some voice lessons because I had stage fright issues, and I'm a singer, and so I tackle that. And I'm realizing we still have stage fright. We just utilize it differently, but But yeah, that's how it all started.
Did you do any training, for acting or classes, or was it just pretty much absorbing the
I'd had some voice training before. I started out in musical theater, and then I realized that I'm a bass baritone and I'm black, so there's only so many roles that black bass baritones get. So, and I was tired of singing oohs and ahs and being the help all the time. So I should why don't I learn a monologue, So my first play was Equus at Post 5. Someone gave me that opportunity, and I learned how to speak in dialect, and then I'm learning what upstage and downstage means, and
how to break down. You were learning on the fly. You were learning in the moment.
And then I studied with Elizabeth Huffman for a while.
We've had Elizabeth on our show.
And she's a great teacher, and she gave me some Shakespeare training. I'm like, how do you mark your beats? And just those little things. And I still, every show that I get, I learn something new about myself. I make a new discovery. And I try to remain humble and remain teachable. So I just wait for it.
That's beautiful. And we do that still, right? Those of us who've been at it a lot longer, that's the beauty of the art of theater. We never stop learning from each other, from the work, from the show.
It's terrifying. I'm like, I'm terrified of what's coming up, and I'm like, I think I should be doing that if I'm terrified. So let's do it.
Definitely feeds the work.
Yeah. It keeps you on the edge.
It
keeps you alive.
It does.
It keeps you on the edge.
So, James, you did a show at Defunct. Was it your first there?
Yes, I've been a subscriber for a couple of years. I love the type of theater that they'd done there.
Very intimate.
Yeah, I was like, I like the plays here. I'm going to see the plays and decide if I like to see plays at a theater before I start looking to work there. And I love the edgy stuff that they did. It was always something to stick your hands in a fire with. And yeah, they asked me to come in for an audition for Dutchman. For
Dutchman by Amiri Baraka, who was Leroy
Jones
at the time he wrote it. Yeah. A seminal piece from, I think it was about the 60s that he wrote 60s. That.
Yeah. And when you think about this piece in particular, I had a really hard time grasping. I'd never done a monologue that big, that large, and when you think about what was happening in the 60s, why did he change his name? He was married to a Jewish white woman. Even the monologue that's in the play is very anti-Semitic and misogynistic. And I had problems with that because it seemed a bit masturbatory for me. So I'm like, just navigating what all of that was exciting, but also there were times in the rehearsal process where I had to step out because I was just start crying because it was just very intense to be in that space and processing these emotions in real time and figuring out where to put them. So it's my first time doing something so.
So let's help listeners understand the play a little bit very specifically, because I think it's going to be important to understanding why you would suddenly find yourself going out, crying and overwhelmed with feelings. So let's set them up.
Dutchman was written he wrote it back in the 60s, and for those that have never seen the play, you can see it. You can actually watch the movie on YouTube. It's it's a short movie.
Right.
But it basically starts with a black gentleman sitting on a train reading a book, and then this beautiful white woman walks on a train. And I mean, we're talking about the 60s, so the danger of a white woman and a black woman in proximity that already sets up the scene, and she immediately becomes attracted to him in a very enticing sort of way, and in a way that it's hard to understand what she really wants from him.
Right.
So she becomes very sexual with him. He becomes very interested in her, but she's also very abrasive and using lots of racist language to entice him. But it's like building him up and beating him down, and a lot of that was really hard to navigate when you think about, like, why is she being nice? Do I want to sleep with her? Is this okay? So that's pretty much the premise of the whole show. They're going back and forth, and this verbal banter of wanting and not wanting each other and beating each other up. And near the end of the show, she ends up and killing him.
Stabs him, right?
Stabs him to death.
On the subway.
And the whole train gets up, and everyone on the train picks him up and throws him off the train. It's hard to tell if that's real or not, but if you look at the story of the Dutchman is a ship you get on and no one ever gets off.
That's right.
So it's it was really hard to determine, like, is this real, or like how are we playing this up? So I mean, my counterparts and I'd sit on the phone with her for 3 hours. It's like, what does this mean? Just line by line breaking it down. It's just a meaty text. So
and also she's lacerating him during the course of the play. He's attracted to him, so it's this weird, dangerous.
But it's hard to say. But I guess it's really hard to decide what she was attracted to. So I think she you never really get any answers, really.
Right.
But also, why is he sitting through this? So he wants this, but he doesn't. And well, you can call me that, but he still wants her. And then it's this whole play about black men wanting white women, and white women, and the risk of black men have been dying for decades over this thing. So that intimacy and the space and the distance and the closeness in such a tight space was just very, yeah.
So when you tell this story you're telling us, you had gone through your rehearsal period, which had to have been, as you say, you would talk to your co-actor for 3 hours after rehearsal because you couldn't shed the provocation and the stimulation that you'd experience and the trauma from rehearsal that day or that evening, and then finally you're ready to open. But did you? And there are other people in the show?
Yeah, we had. Well, first of all, we were doing trifles, so we start with trifles, and then we would just kind of transition into Dutchman
in one night. Okay.
In the same. I mean, we would close trifles. I would take off my inspector jacket, and then I turn around and I'm Clay on the train. So we were doing both shows.
Okay.
So we had like a cast of 5 folks that were in the cast. There were two black men in the show, and one of my counterparts was I'm not going to name this young man because I don't want to do that to him, but he was a poet and he'd never been in a show before. And I mean, I know we're skipping to the opening part, but one thing that really I noticed was when we did our first read through, I was watching his body language and he seemed, you can just tell when someone's a little tense, and I'm like, are you okay? And I realized he hadn't read the script before he...
You mean he was in Trifles, but he hadn't read The Dutchman?
He's like, no, so I'm like, and this, I mean, the model, I mean, this stuff gets pretty racy,
gosh.
You have to know why you're here.
Lacerating.
Yeah.
It's lacerating.
Yeah. What are we feeling?
We
had plenty of times throughout the process where we had to just stop. Hey, let's just talk. Building up trust and love in the space is something that I thought we did really well. But apparently,
and the director just, what was the choice to do it? What was the director or whoever took up the mantle? What were they hoping to do with it by resurrecting a show like that?
Right. From what I understand, that is the concept of being caged. So the women in Trifles had these dresses, and the dresses were like squares. They looked like little cages, and even the shirt that I wore underneath was like a cage. So that was like the caged bird, and then the caged man. It's all about the concept of being trapped in this system of oppression.
Right,
so we go from a misogynistic piece to a racist and misogynistic piece afterwards. So
got it.
That was the concept for that.
Right.
So it was. I mean, it was hard for me because I don't like playing a misogynist. I played the inspector. And I had to process my feelings with male privilege, and then we're flipping it around, and my Elizabeth Jackson played Lula, and we connected with each other the day I got hired.
That's
She's
terrific.
like, hey, let's have some coffee. Let's talk about how we work, what we're doing. I mean, the language, I mean, it's really racist language.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
So overt.
But we had so much, we looked each other in the eyes, and I knew exactly what she was feeling. I knew we were like connected the whole time, which was really great.
So we got you derailed. So we were talking about opening night, but that was,
that's right.
It was a good digression.
At some point you can tell us what point in the run.
Well, I mean, about week 2, there's a part of the play where we get to the end and things really start to ramp up. This rapid boil of the end of the play is happening. I'm going into this big monologue, and I'm getting up. I'm angry with her. I've had enough. I'm about to put my hands on her and start yelling and stuff. It's a really visceral part of the play to be in, and I went through this. I went through opening night. We got through it, got through the jitters of it. And one of my cast members, we got through the first week. One of my cast members was just like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. And so I met him on Monday. And he says, I don't know if I want to do this show. And I said, well, okay, well, what's going on? I said, hey, we got to read the play for you. Show up. Like, he wasn't dealing well with the language of having a white woman saying these very racist things to me. And I said, well, it's Monday. We've got a Thursday performance. Today's the day to quit. So we can, because he didn't have any lines, or not that he wasn't important. And so I just gave him a little bit of comfort because we're the only black folks in the play. And I said, hey, if you need anything, let me know. If you need some support, let me know. But
you had already performed it twice.
We'd already performed it for 2 weeks. So we've already done 2 weeks. We're 2 weeks into the run. So I didn't hear from him again until we had our Thursday performance. This is the coffee shop where Defunct is at. The show's running, it's dark, and the door's open. And I hear 5 or 6 people coming in the darkness.
While you're on stage.
Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Latecomers.
Yes, but it was like, we're well into the show now.
Wow.
And I'm looking at her and like, you know, I don't know what's happening, but what the hell's going on? And I said, okay. And then, you know, there's a part when this monologue happens where the fourth wall is broken. I get to look finally. So, because the audience become the train members now.
Right.
And I'm like, and I look around, I'm like, got it. And I looked around and they were mostly black kids and they were looking at me as though they were not happy to be here. And one of them had a camera. They were recording. So I'm like saying, right what the WTF, you know? And I knew something was happening. And mind you, Trump had just been elected, and there were a lot of Nazi protests happening just right after he'd been inaugurated. And so, like in my world, I don't know if this is a I don't know. You know, anyway. I'm getting triggered just talking about it.
Well, there's all these weird forces going on. It's a dangerous time, and you're doing this very dangerous play, and now all of a sudden...
And we're saying racist things to each other and getting violent, and like you're just in your body, and it's like, and then all of a sudden I get up from a monologue, and my castmate stops me.
He's on stage with you.
Yeah, he stops me, and then he says, he's got something to say, and I'm like,
what?
Okay. It's like, and then he gets on the stage and goes into the spoken word poetry bit for 5 minutes and rips up his contract on stage, takes off his costume. And they all get up and walk out. And Elizabeth is looking there, you know, and she says her lines, 3 little N-words sitting on a limb. None of them ever look like him. And then he stops the show. And it's like the train is moving and someone puts a big steel wall right in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't know what to do. And then they got up and left. And then they said, well, what are we going to do? I said, I'm leaving. I got to go. He stopped the show.
Did he leave with them?
He left. He walked out. They staged a walkout. So basically what he did was he was in the back room texting them when they come in. They came in. He got up, shut the show down, and they all walked out together.
So we actually have some of the audio from the video that was taken by the people who disrupted the performance. Mike, roll it, please.
Get up and scream at these people! Like scream meaningless shit in these hopeless faces!
Fine, I will. And seeing as this is a social justice theater, I would hope that nobody in this room would try to silence me. Seeing as this is a social justice theater, I would hope that people would have open minds and open hearts to a man who is experiencing circumstances which we are relating to before a black man would burst. I would hope you wouldn't silence me. Now y'all ain't gonna silence me. Y'all ain't gonna silence me. Y'all ain't gonna silence me. Y'all about to feel every single thing I got living inside of me. Y'all ain't gonna silence the pride in me. Y'all ain't gonna silence the pain in me. No. Y'all ain't gonna silence the sun in me. Y'all ain't gonna silence the rain in me. The rain in me. Oh, Isaiah, why you gotta rain on our parade? A parade? Tell me, what are we celebrating? Certainly not blackness, because all I feel is hatred day in and day out. Day in and day out. This type of shit, that's day in and day out. Day in and day out. Now I'm getting paid to come on stage and relive this shit day in and day out. Day in and day out. Day in and day out. I'm actually getting paid to be here on stage and see a friend of mine get paid to get beat. Like, this shit doesn't get internalized. I get internalized. This shit gets internalized. Like my black friends that come here don't internalize this shit. I'm supposed to be on the Dutchman. I'm having to relive this shit on stage. Day in and day out. Day in and day out. Now look. It took me a little bit of time, but I think I begin to clarify the reality of this function. Black life being lynched verbally, to supposedly uplift white consciousness. Still exploiting black hearts and black minds to benefit white people. Still exploiting black minds and black hearts to cater and serve to the all-important white consciousness. I'm literally getting paid to be on stage and see a friend of mine get paid to get beat. Fuck your money. Fuck your contract. Y'all ain't gonna silence me. Part 5, letter C. The volunteer will defend and hold harmless the producer from claims for injury to persons including, but not limited to, the volunteer and all others associated with the production, or damage to property including the volunteer's property. Does that include my mental property? My emotional property? So I'm supposed to hold harmless what I'm experiencing. Like messaging doesn't exist. Like messaging doesn't exist. I'm hearing this shit. I'm reading this shit. Like messaging doesn't exist. Fuck this contract, dog. What type of play is this? Y'all couldn't find a play that explores racism, that doesn't demoralize and dehumanize black life, all black life in this place? Y'all couldn't find a play that explores racism, that doesn't depict black power and violence and anger, as if we don't see that shit in the media every day, in the history books every day, everywhere we look every day. Y'all, I don't know if y'all, if you didn't see the play, the monologue that's about to come up is gonna be angry. It's gonna be violent. It's gonna be violent. Y'all is gonna see a violent, angry black man in here. The narrative is messaging. We have to consider the messaging. I'm considering it because I'm in it. I'm in the messaging. I fucking signed that contract. Not me. Y'all couldn't find a play that explores racism, that also uplifts black culture, and uplifts black life. For what? To benefit who? White people. We're still centering whiteness. But a black man wrote it. And skip him to in any theater that shows this. Amiri Baraka, y'all did the research. Y'all know how problematic he is. So this is a slice of blackness that we're going to show on the stage to mostly white folks? An anti-Semitic, racist, violent man? This is the slice? This is the slice? Writing a black man in to get beat like that. To uplift white consciousness. Still serving white people and exploiting black bodies. Still serving white people. Still exploiting black bodies. Like my heart, my mind don't experience the shit every time I'm here. Lula said it best. It works on you until you hate it. I wonder how the Portland theater world will respond to a black man choosing to speak his mind for his own mental sanity. I wonder how the Portland theater world will respond to a black man choosing his own mental health over receiving a petty-ass paycheck. I wonder how the Portland theater will respond to a black man choosing his own mental health over the supposed raising of the all-important white consciousness. I wonder how defunct theater will respond. Maybe hire another black man to exploit. Take my place. The show must go on. The show must go on. I wonder if they'll act like this never existed. Like the experiences didn't exist. Like the experiences aren't real. Like the trauma isn't real. Like the experiences of my black friends that have been in this building seeing this play aren't real. I would hope not. I love this cast. And I hate this play. And I would hope that it would cease, but that ain't my call, you know? I can only bring light to what I know. And social justice, right? When a new awareness comes, a change of behavior comes, right? So I would hope that this social justice theater would critically analyze what is happening not only in the play, but to the people in the play. Because this shit is real. Still exploiting black bodies. Still exploiting black bodies. I'm just gonna leave everything right here for y'all. To serve white people, not me. Not me. Not me. Ain't no amount of money that can be worth my mental health. There ain't no amount of money that can be worth my mental health. No amount of money. No amount of money. No amount of money that's worth my mental health. No amount of money. There ain't no amount of money. No amount of money that's worth my mental health. No amount of money that's worth my mental health, dog. For real, man.
Oh my God.
What he was doing, it's this, activism. So
He was
like
staged.
hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter,
Right.
shut down bridges and stuff. Like, when you really think about that, that's what this was.
There was an element of protest.
Yeah. And so I'm in a tough spot because as cast members, like, hey, castmate, what do you need? We've got love here. I remember him calling me afterward, a couple hours, an hour or so later. And I said, you know what, man? I said, I'm really upset with you, but I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you, but I'm really pissed off because one, I hate to sound selfish about this, it was just a very traumatic part of the play to be in as an
not
actor.
Selfish, James.
I was just he
ambushed the show, and he ambushed you in the process.
And this part of the play is just you're in your skin, you're in your skin, and it was just a very hard place to stop the show.
Right.
And and I was like, well, shit, why didn't you trust us to talk this out? And that's how he wanted to do the thing.
He couldn't deal with it, obviously. What did you? So when you decided I can't go on, did somebody make an announcement to the audience? What was their reaction?
The stage manager finally came out of the booth and told everyone that we're stopping the show. I remember D. Mae Roberts was there.
Oh yeah.
I believe she's with the I can't remember her name now. There's a couple of other prominent folks in town, and they said, was that part of the show? One guy's just like, he's like, oh my God, that was great. And I was like, hey, that's not part of the show, buddy. But he loved it. But what a time to be in this piece and this happening.
Exactly.
But also, why are we doing this work? Defunct, why are you doing this work? James, why are you doing this work? Like, these are questions we have to ask ourselves. Why are the audience members participating? And I felt really bad because Elizabeth said that some folks had followed her to her car. She felt a little threatened.
After the show.
Yeah, no one attacked her, but it's just
Scary
she doesn't
moment.
know.
No.
We canceled the next show.
Oh, did you?
And we all came in the next day, and they said, well, we're going to have someone posted at the door and all this other stuff. And so if they come back, we'll call the police. And I was like, oh, hold on. And I said, I'm here because I want to be here. But look at what's happening in our country right now. I don't protest in that way. This work is my protest. But I'm black. I'm a black actor. I'm a black man first. If they show up here and protest this show, you're not calling the police. I will leave because
that's the response that is not
really
going
smart.
to agitate,
You know what I
but you're acknowledging and respecting them, just like you said to the actor. I'm pissed, but I
Yeah.
You
It's
say,
not
I honor you,
arrestable.
I respect
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's not arrestable. There's a confrontation
Yeah.
going on. In many ways, that's what theater is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, forget spectacle and musical theater. There's a place for that. But theater should challenge us. There has
Yeah.
to be room for it. The fact that it ignited that
Yeah.
kind of response, to me, is encouraging in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, because that's what we want the theater to do if we have the means to process it, right? So
Right.
it has to. So it sounds like I'm interested to see how the cast processed
Well,
afterwards.
some folks we were all just really shooken up about it, and I was in tears. I had I had an audition the next day.
Oh, I would imagine. Would just,
And a Clackamas
Shake
rep
you up.
with Cindy
Right.
Smith English, and
Yes,
she's like,
yes.
"Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, let me tell you what happened last night." And I told her about it. She ended up coming to the show because she had to see this thing, you know. But I just even coming in to sit down and talk about it, I was like, "Hey, if you call the police, I'm leaving."
you're right.
That's when I'm going to break this contract, because you chose to do this show.
Yeah.
We choose to stay here. This is the world we live in. If they're going to protest and shut the bridges down every day, we're still going to cross the bridge and go to work.
That's
If
right.
we got to stop, we got to stop.
Did you get a new actor? Or is
We
it-
did.
Okay.
And he worked out just great.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we had our first talk back maybe a week or two after that, and I remember feeling really outside of myself. And this is nothing against Defunct at all, but I'm an equity facilitator, and I hate talkbacks where people want to know about my process and all this other stuff. And I'm like, can we talk about why we're doing this play? Can we talk about what just happened last week and how we're intersecting this work with what's happening
In the world.
Did
right
they,
now?
were they doing that? Was there enough? I mean, it seems like an opportunity to bring the community together when you get that kind of response. This is really painful. This is really difficult. But
Right.
is it possible to have a conversation around these things?
And that's what I brought up. That didn't happen. I did recommend that. I was like, hey, why don't you try to have a talk with these kids and see, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
he called. It's like we don't need our black men on stage with white women using. I was like, I hear you, but give me a break with that. Like, I know why I'm here. You know.
Right.
Create a dialogue with me about why this work is important for us
and
as
why this
theater
play
artists.
was written.
And let's
you
have
know,
a dialogue about why this language hurts you and how and what direct actions we can do on stage, off stage, in the world. That's what I'm excited about. And that didn't happen. I mean, that didn't happen. It didn't happen in the talkback. But I raised my hand and I was like, well, I know why I'm here to do this play, and I wouldn't put it all out on the table.
And, you know, it's a testament, once again, to the ferocious dedication on stage, the world that you created with
Right.
your co-actors, when the audience, as they always do, they're just buying it. They think that's on purpose. They think this must be a revisionist version of the Dutchman because you know what I mean? It becomes like a play within a play.
Do you think people thought that, or were they getting what
There
they
were
thought?
people who were just like, wow. I was like, okay. And the one guy's just like, watching it all go down. I was like, hey, bro, this isn't part of the show.
No, really, it's not a part of the
They're so
show.
forgiving.
Really,
I mean,
yeah,
they're
that's
so
what I'm.
trusting.
I don't know
so
if you saw the
trusting.
video. They sent us a video of it. I wasn't really acting at that. I was trying to get through the line. I was just like, not. I like. But they, you know, what a night. What a night and what a night. You know, like
Unforgettable.
I didn't want it to happen, but it's something that I'll never forget for my entire career.
Absolutely
you know what I mean?
not.
I have a question. I want to go back to the actor and his choice.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me that he had a choice. He didn't know how to respond. It was upsetting to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all this language in it. It's an old play. It's he's probably a young man. That's like 60s plays. No connection to it. Not an actor, so no connection to it. But he felt that he needed to take a stand somewhere, right? I mean, that's what I see. He had to respond. The worst thing that happens is people don't respond at all, and they go away, and he internalizes that. Now he's got to spend the rest of his life for several years eating how that felt, having it go unprocessed. But in a way, he discharged his discomfort by taking a stand, and I think that has value.
Right, and honestly, in his defense, you know, I'm a black actor in Portland. I've been called the N-word more times on stage than I have been off stage, but I read the play before I show up.
Well, no, that would have been,
you know,
okay,
like, I was
yeah,
like,
back,
okay.
yes.
I was offered a role in To Kill a Mockingbird. I was like, that's a no for me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Little 12-year-old kids call me the N-word all night. It's like, it wasn't working for me.
Right.
But I mean, it says a lot. I mean, now that I'm directing, we have to think about how our actors are. When we've got racist language, what are we setting up in the rehearsal process? What are we talking about? How are we building trust? What do these words mean? What is our intention here? How are we holding ourselves up? How are we holding up the audience members? You know, when we're using racist language on stage, they're black. Honestly, those kids are like, I don't want to hear this. I don't blame you. So why are you here?
Yeah.
Like, what are you here? What are you here to do? I respect his decision, but I just wish he had done something differently, because
sure.
we built so much trust.
You were offering yourself.
That's what I was like. Hey, what do you need, brother? What do you need?
Yeah.
And I'm still a little pissed off because you chose to
disrupt.
I mean, for me, it's like setting off a grenade in a room, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But the way people fight for their freedoms is their business.
And the way he took care of himself.
Yeah.
Which is better than internalizing it, I guess. That's where it gets sick. That's where it gets toxic.
But also, if you don't like this type of work, then produce your own. I'm doing it. I directed Booty Candy. Like, I want to see black queer work. It's like, well, I'm gonna direct a black queer play.
And he's a poet.
Did spoken word poetry there on stage. When that show was over, I was like, I don't do hugs. I say, don't touch me, don't talk to me, don't ask me how I feel. I've got crystals on my eyes. Like, every show, I was like, I just want to. I was like, don't.
What do you do? What's your process
I go out the back door, because the thing about it is, with a play like that, you want to hug me. Do you want me to make you feel better?
Yeah, no, right.
Do you want me I don't?
I love
it. It's not my job to make you feel better. I need you to go home and talk to someone. I need you to go home and have conversations with your kids.
That's not my responsibility. Make you feel better. Yeah, that's not my job.
What, I mean, I don't say I don't care, but like, you know what I'm saying.
No, and I think that's different from just having a closure with the group you've been working with so intimately.
Right.
That's another level.
How did you deal with it? Your response was very different. Sure, it made you uncomfortable. It had to hurt. How did you process it differently, and that led to a different result for you? And it sounds like you're already implementing things that would help others deal with it.
Yeah, I made I read my script every day. I had so many lines. I read it every day. Every day I come in early enough to run lines with my partner. I go outside. I breathe in the space. I walk through the space. I studied Alexander technique, so I lie on the floor, stillness, breathing. I'm melding with the space and just checking in with my body, checking in with my spirit, and bringing myself into the space. I do that before every show. And I have to, because it puts me in a space where I can be in my body, in this space, wielding these words right here, right now, in this space and time. As weird, as crazy as that sounds. That's literally what I do every day. I open the circle, I perform, and then I close the circle. I come in, I take a breath. I have some crystals on my dresser, and I leave. And I do that every day, because I know, first of all, I know why I'm here. If I know why I'm here, everything else fits into place.
That's really important.
You have to know why you're here.
That sacred place, James, that you created for yourself and that you did every night, that was shattered. That's exactly what I said. It's just like the theater. I mean, it's not a church, but it's such a sacred space. Absolutely.
And like, nobody wants to say these words, but it's just like, man, this container that we built together after all this time. It's like you cheat. It's like you cheated on me and you stabbed me in the heart. And it's not about me, but I was like, man, can we talk about it before we start?
So you felt betrayed a little bit.
I did, because I'm proud of him, but in my mind, what ifs? What if this were a more violent group, which they're not, but what if your choice was to come in here with bats and knives and do? What if that was the choice? Could you feel so oppressed that you want to actually inflict damage or inflict physical harm on someone? I'm focusing on the intent of making a choice to do this instead of connecting. And I think that's a lot of things we lose when we talk about race, we talk about gender, when we talk about politics. We got to have dialogue with one another and just connect.
Well, James, I want to say I'm glad that you had the courage, the strength, and the passion, so most importantly, to continue with the show, with your acting, with directing now. That's been a huge journey for you.
Thank you, James, so much for coming and sharing with the show. And thank you, Luann, for having me. I really wanted to be here for this one. I could talk about it for hours.
Yeah.
So can I. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a
pleasure.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you, James.
Of course.
Thank you so much for tuning into The Actor's Nightmare. If you have a story you'd like to share and want to be on the show, it's really easy. Just record it into your phone and send it in an email to actorsnightmarepodcast@gmail.com. And remember to subscribe to the Actor's Nightmare podcast. You can go to our website at www.actorsnightmarepodcast.com, choose subscribe, and then choose the platform that you like to use to listen to podcasts. Please subscribe if you like what you hear. And again, I want to thank our sponsors, Artist Repertory Theater, Portland's premier regional theater company, and to Bob Conklin, an ardent sponsor of all things theatrical here in Portland. And finally, to Real Estats, providing statistical overviews for residential real estate in Oregon and Washington. This is Luann Moldovan. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time on The Actor's Nightmare.